Thanks for joining me for another review. This is the Jetbeam HR30 headlamp, and it's the first light I've reviewed for Jetbeam. It's a new design for them, and it has USB-C recharging. It's really nice to see USB charging start to make its way into the flashlight market as a new standard. Thanks to Jetbeam for sending this to me to take a closer look at. So here is the packaging that the Jetbeam came with, and it's a nice packaging, and I'll put in some still photos that really show it off better than what I'm showing here. But you get all your relevant information, tells you which LED, what battery power it uses, and more importantly for most people here are the modes and the battery power that it uses. I've noticed this with other brands, mainly Claris. In their tests here of runtime, they're using a 3500 milliamp hour battery, but they're not shipping a light with a 3500 milliamp hour battery. They're only with a 2600 milliamp hour battery. So I wish they would update the records or the battery that it's shipped with so you know, so it's accurate to what's actually in the box. The light comes with several accessories here. You've got the 2 extra O-rings, a nicely written manual, a warranty card, a certificate of approval, and you get a nice pocket clip here that goes onto the light either on the bottom here or the top, so it's ambidextrous. You also get the headlamp portion here, and I'll show how this works in a second, but basically you have to take off the end caps and put these rubber sides on. This is a nylon kind of plastic. It's fairly flexible but rigid at the same time. There's no additional padding here other than the strap. It does come disassembled, so you've got to put this strap loop through. It wasn't really hard to do. And it also comes with a pretty nice USB-C cable in case you don't have one. The other end of the cable is USB 3, but it's standard USB style here. So that can charge. It would be best to charge this on a wall charger to get the most voltage and amps. Also included is a 2600 milliamp hour battery that I've got installed in the light. So let's take a closer look at the body of the flashlight itself. The body of the light is built with aircraft aluminum. That's hard anodized. Around the front with the button here, you'll see that this is plastic. It's held in with 4 hex screws that are 0.50 inches. Very, very small. The button here is rubber coated, and the lens sticks out a little bit, as you can see here, and is anti-reflective coated glass behind that reflector and LED. There are 2 red LEDs in the front here, and here, and these are flush mount. The body tube here is flanked by 2 really nicely machined caps. They have this knurling that only goes one direction. I think it's just really attractive. It's not the best for grip, but it's better than being smooth. On one end of the cap here, you've got the USB recharging, and to get it, you just have to unscrew this cap. You can see on the threads here is the USB-C recharging port. There is LEDs built inside there, but they aren't multicolor. They only go green, so it only shows a connection. I'll show what that looks like here. It's just a faint bit of green that you can see sticking around. That's all you get when it's recharging, when it is empty and currently recharging. Here's where some things start to get interesting. So I unscrewed the other side with the cap. It's got a nice, pretty stout golden spring in here. And it is magnetic on the other side here, which I forgot to mention. Like I said, here's where things get interesting. You have this cam-shaped battery tube, and what I've got in it right now is the 18650 that it shipped with. I'll just take it out here. The battery that it ships with is a Jetbeam branded 2600 milliamp hour 18650 that is a button top. It's a fine battery, and because of the battery types this light can run, it comes with this plastic spacer. So if you're going to run an 18650, you just slap it in and then slap the battery in. It fits, and it helps prevent any rattle inside the tube, which I really like. While I've got this open, take a look at the threads here. The threads are pretty nice. They're fine, and they're pretty standard. Here is the head strap that the HR30 comes with. And let's start at the top here. It is plastic nylon. This is the part that keeps the light in place when it's installed there and sets your angle. It is capable of 160 degrees of rotation. These 2 end caps are rubber and pretty soft. As I mentioned before, this comes unassembled, and you've got to kind of get the straps fit and according to you. This rear strap you've got to loop through and attach. The top strap is not removable unless you wanted to cut it completely due to these fused end caps, as you can see here. The strap itself is an elastic nylon. It's mostly black with a little bit of these gray flames, and they're non-reflective. It's a fairly basic strap. I have no problems with it. So to install the headlamp into the holder, you've got to unscrew both caps, as I was mentioned. Then you just have to kind of fight it here. And this is easier to do when it's closer and in my lap, but you get the idea. You basically put these over on both ends, one at a time. And once you've done that, your headlamp is installed. At that point, make sure your O-rings aren't being pinched like mine is here. Slap your caps back, battery in, and your caps back in, and you're good to go. So here is the HR30 with the strap attached and everything. I ended up having to take an O-ring off a side here and then put it on, put the O-ring back on. It's not the easiest thing to take on and off, and I'd just recommend probably leaving it on and getting a different light if you need one to do either. So as I was mentioning, it's got 160 degrees of rotation, and it's pretty stout. You're not gonna jump or vibrate and it's gonna lose its place. So that is full upward facing, and then you can rotate it all the way as well. So 160 degrees of locked rotation, but 180 degrees of complete rotation. So without the headlamp, the weight of this with the included 18650 and the spacer is 110 grams. And this light is also capable of running a 2700 battery here. And in case you're unfamiliar, 2700 is just a little bit fatter battery. It is just a slightly longer, but it has a lot of capacity. So this one is rated for 2600 milliamp hours, and the nominal voltage is 4000 milliamp hours. So you can see there, that's a lot of power difference. And I'll get to what my runtime differences were in a minute here. But basically, for 14 extra grams of weight, you can get 42% more runtime, which is huge. This light uses a luminous SST40N5 LED, and this isn't one I've tested before. No color temperature is given by Jetbeam, but for me it's on the warm side. It's definitely not cool white, but there's a pretty strong green tint to the LED that I don't care for. Inside, this bothers me when up at close ranges, but outside, especially against green grass or trees, thank God it's finally springtime here. I think it's less noticeable. It's not my favorite tint. From reading about this LED, the CRI is most likely around 70. It's not an LED that's in use a lot. The beam is pretty smooth after about 10 feet and really throws well for how shallow the reflector is. So here's my tabletop beam shot, kind of you can see there. Not bad. It's got a hotter center at close ranges. Here are my night shots for the Jetbeam HR30 headlamp. And I'm actually wearing the headlamp here. And this is on eco mode. And you can see it does a nice job of lighting up the stairs pretty well here. As I pan up, you lose it, obviously. And it's only a couple lumens. And then if I bump up, this is the first mode. This is good for use. If I pan down again, you can see it's quite a bit brighter than eco. This is all you need if you're out hiking, trying to find a bathroom or something like that. This runtime is pretty insane, especially if you got a 2700. Bumping up one more time there. This is really where you start to get some distance on the light. No problems there. One more mode up. You can start to see the warm tone of this beam here pretty well. Outside, I don't notice, it's got a green tinge to it, but outside it seems pretty neutral and natural to me. And bumping up again here. This is pretty darn bright. I can see into my neighbor's fence there pretty easily. Throw is decent for a headlamp here. This is definitely floody, but it's got some throw ability. It's a nice balance between the two. This red is kind of a nice mix here. It's enough to see your feet. If I look down all the way, I can kind of see the boards on my deck here. So you can see down easily, and if you're trying to read something in front of you like a map here, it's not too bright. The UI of this light could stand a bit of tweaking in my opinion. To turn it on from off, you have to press and hold about half a second the button here. If you just press once, you get a battery check. And this is showing my battery doesn't have a ton of capacity right now. So you get that white, red, which kind of, I like that part of it. But what I don't like is that battery check is the mode that comes up when you just press. When I first got this light, I find myself going into battery check way too often. I'd much rather have a combination of UI where you have to triple press or quad press to get to battery check. On normal mode, after you've hit that half second, the default is Eco, which is 5 lumens, Low, which is 50 lumens, Middle at 150 lumens, and High at 400 lumens, with Turbo being 950 lumens. The last mode in the group is Red mode, and that's something I really like, where red mode in this light isn't too bright. It's enough where you can see your feet, maybe 1 or 2 feet in front of you, but it doesn't feel like it was too bright to read a map, which is something I am often finding with red lights. And this light does have low voltage protection, as I was indicating. I don't think it's ideal, because what it does is it flashes these red lights for when the remaining 20% of the battery has been reached till it ends. And the problem with this is it's hard to read when it's on your head unless you have something close in front of you and you can tell it's flashing red, because that red isn't super bright. I'd like to see some shortcuts added to the UI. Maybe double click the turbo and triple click the red. Take the red out of the normal modes and maybe a quad click for battery check instead of that fast press. As I was mentioning, this light can take 3 different types of batteries. It takes 18650s, it takes 2700s, and it takes CR123s. I like that it includes that little plastic spacer to help the batteries not to rattle around. I measured the parasitic drain at 4.0 microamps. I tested runtime with the included Jetbeam battery, which is installed in the light right now, and it's 2600 milliamp hour rated. Turbo ran for a timed 3 minutes before falling rapidly to 55% of its relative output for a large bulk of the remaining time. For the next 130 minutes, it was fairly stable, and at the end I saw 1 or more large decline with output to 20% relative output, and the light shut off due to low voltage protection. During the battery's last 20%, the red LEDs flashed, letting you know power was running low, and total runtime was about 145 minutes on 2600 milliamp hours. Now, thanks to Reddit user McFarley6996 for sponsoring me and sending me a 2700 battery for me. I didn't have one or any lights that took one previous to this, and it was really great to be able to test and see how much more runtime you get with such a minimal weight differences. As I was mentioning before, it's about 14 grams of weight difference. The total runtime with the 2600 milliamp hour 18650 that was included was 145 minutes. The total runtime on this Panasonic 4000 milliamp hour cell was an impressive 260 minutes. That's 44.2% more runtime, only for an additional 14 grams in weight. Output curves are pretty similar between the two, with that main difference being that 55% relative output was 220 minutes in length. With a 2700 milliamp hour battery, it makes the Jetbeam HR30 be the longest duration headlamp I have by quite a large margin. As I was mentioning before, this light uses USB-C, and in case you don't know, this is a Usbc connector. It is universal. You can put it in right here, and you can put it in like that as well. That's what's really nice about USB-C. And you can see when I did that, you get a little bit of green around the port there to let you know you've got a good connection. While charging, you can turn on the LED if the battery has a little bit of power left on it. You just press and hold. In this case, USB-C doesn't really give you any great power advantages due to the safety side inside the battery and the charger. I charged about 1.5 to 2 amps for most of the duration of the charge, which is safe. In comparison to other lights, the HR30 is shorter. This is an Armitech ELF C2. Also uses an 18650 and is rechargeable here in the head cap via micro USB. So the HR30 is shorter, as you can see here, but it is a little bulkier. So what it loses in length, it gains in bulk. I think the Wizard C2 is better for an EDC. A, it has a better pocket clip, and B, it's slimmer in profile. Both have magnetic tail caps, as you can see here, which is nice. So the pros for me of this light are USB charging. It's really nice to see that standard start to become more mainstream. because it is becoming more mainstream on your cell phones and electronic speakers and just really everything. It is the standard going forward. I like that this light is multi-cell capable, including 2700 support. More lights like this, where runtime is important, need to start including the support for 2700 batteries. That huge runtime on that 2700 battery is just crazy. 260 minutes out of one battery. I like the 160 degrees of locking rotation in the headlamp, and I really like these beautifully machined tail caps. For me, the cons are the charging indication status is just too much with those red LEDs flashing for the first 20% or so sometimes. I just use a red, green, blue multi-LED indicator in the tail cap here. I think for a light in this price range, the 2600 milliamp hour battery is low, especially considering Jetbeam does runtime ratings with a 3500 milliamp hour battery. At a minimum, they should upgrade to that 3500 milliamp hour 18650, but I really think they could leverage that 2700 battery and the runtimes if they just included one as well. In summary, it's nice to see USB-C charging making its way to flashlights offering onboard charging. It's my connector of choice, and it's easier to use, has higher power capabilities in this application than others. It's also nice to see a headlamp add the capability to run a 2700 battery. As I'm mentioning before, having the ability to power multiple different battery sources is great, makes the headlamp multi-versatile. In this application, where a little bit of extra size and weight doesn't matter much to me, the additional runtime of being able to run a 2700 battery, 42% in my case, over the included one, is huge, and at a very minimal weight penalty of only 14 grams. The HR30 has engineered this pretty well with the included spacer for that 18650 battery too. And I think the UI the HR30 takes some getting used to, with battery check being so easy to activate when you want a continuous mode instead. If you switch between a lot of different flashlights like I do, you'll probably activate the battery check a lot accidentally. I hope Jetbeam decides to move the red mode out of the recharging indicator and go with a multi-color LED in the ports instead. And a few UI shortcuts to red mode and turbo would be nice improvement as well. I like the HR30 headlamp and think that it's best in outdoors due to the tint of the LED and the UI and runtime of that 2700 can add. It's well built with good machining and pretty attractive design, in my opinion. It's too big to use as a pocket EDC, but with the included clip, you could do that if you'd like, or attach it to a backpack or pack, something like that. I'll have a link to the Jetbeam website on where you can see more about this light. It's available at many retailers online as well. Definitely check this light out if you're interested in crazy runtimes or trying out a 2700 sized battery. Thanks for watching this review. Please make sure you like this video and then subscribe to my channel so you won't miss the next review.